So I am Rebecca Thompson Hitt. I am the founder and executive director of the Consciously Parenting Project and the Consciously Parenting Academy. And I am embarking on a journey right now, a pretty massive one, in so many different ways in my life. We've had a long period of time where we've just really felt like we're just kind of drowning in our stuff and in just so much that needs to be taken care of. And so I'd already had this year, I was planning on talking about simplifying, because I think it's so important, whether that's your schedule, whether that's some of your things, or organizing things, or your email, or whatever. We have so many things that we're trying to take care of, and those things all take time away from our relationships, which is where I want to be spending my time. I want to be hanging out with my husband and my kids, and I was really finding that we weren't really able to do that. We're working really, really long hours trying to just, keep the power on, and not really the life that I was looking for. And so we've been talking about it for a while, but we are actually getting out of our house. We are releasing most of our things, and we're getting ready to go travel for a little while and be nomads. So in World School, my 12-year-old is very excited about the adventures that we've got planned. So there's a big incentive, but then there's also a big time crunch, because I have a conference I'm speaking at the end of this month. And so we have to travel, and we have to be all out of our house before that happens. So it's a lot. It's a lot. We're trying to get rid of the things and we don't really want to have a big storage unit. We want actually a small one if we need anything at all. I mean, I'm sure there'll be things we're going to keep. And I was thinking, who can help? Who can help with this? Who can help? And then I remembered Christy Farr was my radio show co-host a number of years ago, and we had so much fun. And, then life got busy, and Christy did more of her own things, and she became the unruly woman, which was very fun to watch from afar. And, I had my own stuff, and then I got married, and then I have stepkids and pets, and, as I said, kind of busy. And so I thought this is a perfect opportunity to get together, to let people know what you do, let people know about your book and your resources. And by the way, I can get a little bit of help here. So I'm simplifying. And I also realize that so many families are struggling with this. They're trying to figure out how to organize somebody else, or they're trying to figure out, how to make it through the kitchen. The kitchen's a disaster. I mean, that was one of the questions somebody sent in, and then I walked into my kitchen, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to turn around, and I am right there, okay, yes, I'm moving, but it's really not that different. It's a little bit more disorganized, but not, anyway. So, and I was just thinking about how we can all benefit from this information, from talking about this, from having these conversations, and from supporting each other.
Absolutely.
And so Christy wrote a book called Is Home Your Happy Place? And it's a great resource, because it doesn't just talk about organizing. It's not an organization book. It's not, here's how you set up your closet. It's about what's in your closet. And
why is it in your closet?
Why is it in your closet? And not just, okay, so you've taken your clothes and you put them there, but why are those clothes still there? What are the emotional things that are tied up in your clothes, in your closet, in your house? Because it's not just, okay, yeah, I've got this stuff. There's always an emotional piece to it.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's easy to work with the emotional piece. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, you know what? I've really struggled with, my weight, and, I'm struggling with, this is the weight I'm going to be. And so I'll do that self work, on myself, and love and accept myself and do what I need to do. And sometimes we can go that direction. And sometimes we need to go to the stuff and the same stuff is going to come up. We can work through it. And sometimes that's just a much easier route to come in. And so that's the beauty of what you do and what you talk about, is that there's lots of ways to look at this stuff, but we need to look at it.
Absolutely. Yes. And then it doesn't have to suck. I've had a lot of, intensity in my community lately, for individuals. And then in the work that we're doing, last month was the month that we looked at mothering challenges and mother wounds, a lot of heartbreak that originates in childhood. And that work is very intense and it's very deep. And I think that space healing has it can have a lighter spin. It doesn't have to be, cleaning house may not be fun for you, but looking at this work and the rewards that come from this work allows people to make really dramatic changes, cultivate really very real healing, and it can be done in a way that doesn't suck. And I love that.
Yay.
Yeah.
I like anything that doesn't suck.
Right.
Yeah, I like lots of choices, and and of course right now I'm going through literally every single thing in my house, and I don't want it to suck.
Right.
So I made a very good choice by reaching out to you.
Yeah.
So if you're following along, if you've seen anything that we've done so far, we've had 2 videos that we've created already where you can kind of follow my process, and Christy's actually applying what she does and helping me to make my way through this. And so you're welcome to listen to those. And, I really feel like it's going to help you too. It's not just, okay, if you're moving out of your house, this will be helpful. It's all
the same. Yes. Everybody's got the same challenges. Everybody has the same stuff, and we hold on to things for a lot of the same reasons. And so when I have somebody, I've done this before with someone a couple of different times in a kind of public way. Even when we had the radio show, we talked about this more publicly. And every time I can find somebody who will do this with me publicly, I get excited, because what I say to you that's true for you, it's not just true for you, it's true for most of us. So hopefully those, little quick, supposed to be quick videos that we'll make throughout the month will be useful to a lot of people, not just people who are doing exactly what you're doing.
Right, exactly. Because I think we all need it. I think, in our culture, we have such a stuff thing oriented culture. Absolutely. That we tend to collect things, we tend to inherit things, we get somebody else's stuff, and now what do we do with this? Mm-hmm. And it's a lot to coordinate. I mean, I was making a list of, everything that needs attention in my house. And this is not including moving. This is just right. Like my bushes need cut.
Yes.
And that's a whole day project. They're giant. They're huge. They go all the way to this big lanai. The grass needs mowed. The pool needs brushed and shocked again. It's green. The car is in the shop right now. So I'm going to take care of my car. My car needs vacuumed. My carpet needs vacuumed because we went to the beach and we trekked in sand. The kitchen's a mess. My kids' room is a disaster. And this is just, a day in the
regular life, right?
Day in the life. This is, probably there's not a whole lot of people listening to this who couldn't relate to that in some way.
Absolutely.
We want to make our lives simpler. And, I think I've been thinking a lot about this, and, I was reading something last year, and it was this couple who was traveling, and they were going into different people's homes. They really wanted to see how people lived all around the world. And so they would go someplace public, and then they would end up in their house. They would be invited in, and they would have dinner, and they would just look around, and the number of things in those people's houses was just like so dramatically smaller. If they had a child, they might have 3
right yes
yes. And if we only have 3 things on the floor, we're doing great. Right. And so it's just, I think that because it is normal, it's what we see all around us, we don't think about how much we actually have compared to most in the world, and then what that does to our time,
Right. Because everything that you have takes time or energy to either keep it clean, keep it tidy, utilize it, or to think about the fact that you're not, so yes. Every bookcase full of books that you have, you're either making space to have a good relationship with them, or you use them as a resource and you share them with your friends and you reread them, or you're thinking about how they're all sitting there not being used. So it's not like just ignoring this stuff makes it not a burden. It's either weighing on you because you're engaged with it, or it's weighing on you because you're not.
Right, right. That's like, I sit here and I work and I can see the bushes that have needed to be trimmed for a really long time. And it takes up emotional space.
Absolutely.
For me. So I want to live somewhere where I don't have bushes that need
Yes.
taken care of. Like
Yep.
I'm thinking a condo. I'm thinking, if I live anywhere, like that.
In a permanent way, yes.
Yeah. Because
where
I don't.
The pool belongs to the whole neighborhood instead of just your family. Yeah.
Yes. And someone comes and takes care of it.
Yep. Because you paid them a small fee every month. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's dreamy.
Yes. So it's really, how do we find our way? Where do we start? How do we, we've all got these things. We all want this simplifying. We all want to be able to slow down. We all want to be able to connect with each other. And we all have a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we even begin? I know with me, I'm just like picking a bin,
Right.
Pick a spot.
I think it actually begins with just recognizing the discomfort we have with that. The fact that you're aching the fact that you've claimed to be a woman who values relationships more than anything else, who's spending all of her time with her stuff because she can't get to the relationships, like that's where it starts. Like the discomfort of that is where it starts. And then everything starts to look like an obstacle to the life that you've claimed to desire. And when you can get to that place where what you're reconnected with what you actually want, then you start interviewing all of this stuff. It's one of the chapters in the book. It talks about this, auditioning. If I was putting on a great show and I, was looking at the old clothes, do we need any of these clothes for, design, the old sets? Can we use any of these parts? Like, we have a brand new show. We're not doing Your Family 2015 or 2014 or 2007. We're doing Your Family 2016, moving into 2017. Those kids grow up. Everybody's changing. Your goals are changing professionally. Your husband's, life is changing. What you guys value as a family is changing. So why would you have, the clothes in your closet from 3 shows ago? Why would you have the stuff in your kitchen from a way that you don't even eat anymore? Why would you have stuff in your garage to do yard work for a yard you don't want to have anymore? Right? So it's about looking to see if the stuff that's around us is actually still true for us. If we need that stuff, this item, this item, like looking literally at every single thing around us and saying, is this true for who I'm becoming? Is this true for who we want to be, who we intend to be? And then everything that isn't is the stuff that can go. And you're freeing ourselves up to use the stuff we decide to keep and to make space for stuff that we want to bring in.
I had a conversation with my friend Janet Connor, and the word that kept coming up as we were talking about it was unencumbered.
Yes.
It's like we need to be unencumbered by whatever it is. And it could be relationships, it could be people, it could be stuff, it could be, obligations, it could, all of it.
Absolutely. And we've looked in our family because the kids are both, they're 17 and 18. So they're both beginning these careers and educational careers that cost money. And so we're like, how can we teach them to pursue the education? How can we support them to pursue their education with the goal of not leaving college weighed down by debt? Because how many of us in our generation are doing work that doesn't feel true for us because we paid for that education and now we need to pay that bill? What would it be like to be able to craft an education for yourself without having the weight of the commitment of, however many thousands of dollars of debt? I mean, to start your adult life as a free person is a really priceless thing that I think a lot of us are disconnected from.
Right. And it is about freedom.
It is absolutely about freedom. And I think we all have these things that pull at our heart. And so all I've ever wanted is to be able to be free to say yes to that pull. So whether that was to be, the pull to be home with my family. I talk to women all the time who want to be home with their kids and can't figure out how to afford to. And I talk to people who want to be traveling, who can't figure out how to do that. people who want to be in certain kinds of relationships and they're, trapped in these houses and these commitments and just weighed down and not able to pursue those dreams. So to me, this is not about having a cute house or a pretty house or a clean house or my house even really being presentable for company, but about being able to say yes to that thing in my heart and to make sure that my partner can say yes to the thing in her heart and that the kids can say yes, that we can at least support them in saying yes to the things in their hearts. Everything else starts to look really foolish when you remember that that's, for us at least, like that's what pushes it. Then it's like, I don't know if I can let go of this t-shirt. Like, really? That t-shirt is a personal dilemma when we're talking about life goals here.
Right. Yeah, that's, as you were talking, it reminds me of a conversation that Trey and I had like a year and a half ago. And I said, Trey, if you could do anything, my husband, if you could do anything, what would you do? And he said, I'd be a photographer. I would just take pictures and that's what I would do. And I remember thinking, well, this is silly because, the life that we have now, there's no room for that. You need to work full time to afford this house. I need to work full time. I mean, we're working more than that, and there's no space for that. And so at that point, and it's been a year and a half, I've been thinking, all right, well, what do we need to do to be free of that? What do we need to do so that he can spend his time doing that instead of, the things that he's doing that aren't necessarily working for him?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now we're doing it.
Game on.
Yeah. A year and a half is a pretty good turnaround on an intention like that. So well done.
Well, thank you. So I know we had some questions that people sent in. So I want to take a moment and pull up those questions.
Right.
And I also want to say that this month, we are, I'm just inviting you, we're doing some free things and we want you to come and take part of it and participate. But if you want more support this month, I have an offer for you guys where for just $27, you can come and you can get a whole lot of support, and not just for this, but also for parenting. And that will help me with my transition. And then I think it'll really help you if you want that other layer of support. So I will let you, I will get you the information, but, I just wanted to mention that, this is just one way to get support. We've got lots of other things going on that may be helpful for you this month that are also cost effective. So, okay. So I think, it's easy to, especially as a parent, to start with that place of someone else's mess, someone else's things. How do we handle that? So the question was, how do we get rid of things that other household members want to keep?
Well, I love that question. I get that question a lot. And I always have the same response, which is first you get rid of the things that are no longer true for you. I have watched over and over and over again, I've watched one person come to my workshop and take these ideas and start implementing them themselves with their home, with their things. They start in their closet. They go into the kitchen and they deal with their things, the things that belong to them, the things they have the authority to release on their own, things that are theirs. And then, everybody's like, wait, what's going on in there? And I always encourage people to talk to their family members about the workshop and the challenges and to invite them. And usually what happens is you'll have one or two people in the house that are like, yeah, I'll do this with you. And then you'll have somebody who's like, no, thanks, I'm out. And I really want, especially when you're first getting started, it's almost like you're building some integrity with the family. And there's always plenty of work for us to do on our own stuff. And so if we start by looking at other people's things, then we're probably leaving on the table some of our own healing that we could be doing. One of the strategies that I suggest with people is that if you have a family, especially with one or more family members who are really resistant to this work, you start to sort of divide up the house into areas. So each person has a space that's theirs. Typically it's a bedroom. If people share bedrooms, you can find creative ways to split space. but that they can do in that space what feels true for them, at least for now. Eventually sometimes there's situations where interventions are required, but for most people that provides some relief. And then you can start working on those family spaces, and those family spaces, that way the person who's in my workshop has got their space the way they want it. The family spaces are the next focus. So our kitchen, our dining room, our living room, the entry, those are spaces that we can agree have a minimum standard. So if we agree that, we want everything cleaned up before the end of the day, then we take 5 minutes and everybody gets it restored to that order. If you have things in the area, then we're going to say, gather your things and take them to your space. And then it's like, what you're basically doing is sort of putting some space between you in this moment and the real battle. If there are people who don't get on board on their own, most will, because it just feels better when this work gets done, and everybody can notice that. And if you get down the road and all your stuff is tended and the family spaces are organized and, feeling really, supportive, then you can move into like storage spaces and things. People have basements and attics and storage buildings and garages and all these places where, again, more of our own work can be done. And then if everything hasn't, if it hasn't changed, then you can start to really reflect and figure out if that person needs, what's the best way to approach that resistant person to cultivate some change with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with a lot of people who are like, okay, we did all these things and now we have to talk about child number 2. I'm like, all right, let's,
let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. And then I always think about too, what is it and what's the reason? Kind of like, we started with the closet, well, what is it? My husband's first wife passed away very unexpectedly. And so there are lots of things that he wasn't ready to release. Mm-hmm. And so like, that's what was coming to me as I was thinking about this. And, I understand that that's what it is for him, and that he needs to be ready. And so what I'm seeing in this process is that for the most part, he's ready and he's releasing pretty much everything. Right. But it was, being able to give him that space, in the meantime.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that we all have these things about us that we need to heal, and to be able to have a safe place to say, I have to do this work, and this relationship is that safe place. It makes a lot of change possible. So whether that's healing money stuff or vulnerability, learning to be open and vulnerable to your partner, whether it's about space healing, whether it's about a career change, whatever those things are, even healing like parenting patterns. If you can get a relationship with your partner where you can just sort of hold space for one another, and that person who needs to do the healing work knows that it's okay if they stumble, knows that it's okay if it takes a little while, that unconditionally loving environment makes a lot of change possible. And then to just have a partner who's willing to witness you. We talked, I don't remember if it was on the recording or not, but we talked about sometimes what just needs to happen for something to be able to go is for somebody to just sit and listen to the story. That's happened over and over and over again, that, people just will take pictures and post them in my workshop groups and say, here, this was this thing. And as soon as they've been witnessed, then things can go. We'll do other things to capture memories, take pictures of an item, because that picture will help you tell the story, even if the item isn't here. So when you get to those nitty gritty kind of emotional artifacts, that are like mementos of relationships, there's still ways to release them if that feels true, but sometimes it's a few extra steps.
Right. Yeah. That wasn't on the recording, so I'm glad that you said that again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was good. Okay. So I want to move on to the next question, which is, kitchen always seems to become a mess. How do you make that a happy place too?
Nice. So kitchens are tricky because it's like when you're trying to change your food habits, it's fine if you want to quit drinking, because you could just quit drinking alcohol and that's done. Not that that's easy, but like you don't have to drink alcohol 3 times a day. You have to eat food 3 times a day. So 3 times a day, at least, you're making decisions about food. You're making decisions about food for other people. So it makes it hard to make those changes. Well, that's what happens in a kitchen. It's got so much action, so much activity, that if your kitchen isn't in its idle moments been healed, then when you have dirty dishes, you don't want to do them because you don't have anywhere to put them once they're dry because the counter's full. Or you don't have, everybody's like, fine, I'll wash dishes, but nobody wants to put them away because the cabinet's full of other dishes that aren't being used. So the real solution with the kitchen is to just take some space and really dig in and look not just about what's going on the counters, but what's going on behind the counters, what's going on at the back of the fridge, at the back of the freezer. Why is it that I don't want to go?
So scary.
I know. I'm so scary. But like when you get on your hands and knees and you get in those cabinets, you realize that that there's a difference between this thing is dirty and it goes in this spot. And so when it's clean, or when it's dirty, I just wash it and I dry it and I put it back. If there's no spot for that, the whole system breaks down. If I go to the grocery store and there's nowhere to put the food, the whole system breaks down. Of course, it's going to stay on the countertops because there's nowhere to put it. So in order to get sort of a long-term change, a really sustainable change in your kitchen, you have to go in and look into the spaces that support what gets seen on the top layer. What happens underneath and in these cabinets that's going to change what's happening on the countertop. Because we think the countertop is like a real crisis zone, but it isn't. It's the supportive spaces that are in crisis. And so the countertop catches what doesn't have a home.
Okay. So it's like the symptom. It's like the canary in the coal mine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the symptom. It absolutely is. And it's, I think the other thing that happens in a kitchen that sort of is maybe what causes the block up, the hold up in the cabinets, is that we can use a lot of things in the kitchen. Doesn't mean we will. So I had, at one point, one of the stories, I think it's in the book, is the pizza stone. I had a round and a square stone from Pampered Chef, and I had them both for many, many years. And because they're stones, like they take space. You can't just like throw them in somewhere. And it was always in the way. One was always in the way. And so I sat down, and this is when I first started doing this work, and I was like, I don't need two stones. I don't have a lot of space in the kitchen. I don't need two stones. And I was like, but I like them both. And I used them for different things. And I thought, okay, what if I didn't have one of them? And what I came down to is at the time we had a lot of frozen pizzas. And I realized that the frozen pizzas that I bought wouldn't fit on the rectangular stone. It wasn't wide enough or deep enough. And the round one did. And there wasn't anything I could come up with that I couldn't put on the round one that I could, the other way around. I did that that's what I had to do with my kitchen. It's like, what would I do if I didn't have this bowl? What would I do if I didn't have these kinds of Tupperware? What would I do? Well, almost always I could find a solution that would allow me to get that stuff down that would actually fit in the space. Because if I start to challenge, like, what would I do if I didn't have this? Because just because I could use a rabbit-shaped cake pan, doesn't mean that I actually need to keep a rabbit-shaped cake pan, It's not the same thing. So I have a client who lives on a boat with her family and like in a permanent way. And so she said she had a big dilemma over Vitamix or what's the other juicer. And so she went out and researched with the other people who live simply, and like there's a whole matter of weight and there's a matter of like energy, right? But they decided to keep the Vitamix. And then she found out that you could buy these like pouches that you could pour through that help siphon off, the stuff that isn't
cool,
in order to at least close enough to juicing to, work for her family. And I think if everybody lived on a boat for a little while and asked those kinds of questions, then all of this would be easier,
Right. Yeah.
We have one crock pot and we have this one meal that we like. So the meat eaters in the house have this amazing meat that's getting cooked today. And I always want my crock pot to make the beans. So I made the beans yesterday. Then the crock pot today is being used to make, the meat to go with it for people. So like in order to avoid buying a second crock pot, which just so wasn't going to work for me, we just alternate. So I make the beans first because it's fine, right? But we basically end up cooking the beans the day before so that we can have one crock pot. This is a very elementary example, but every single problem somebody could bring me in their kitchen is going to have the same kind of solution. Like, I don't want to live this way, and I can find a way to get around it. I don't have to live this way. And to just refuse to accept that this is the way it has to be.
Yeah, I want to go to the refrigerator for a minute
Yeah, let's go.
before we move
Maybe
on.
next time we could do like a video tour of the fridge and just like spend the
Oh,
whole call like throwing stuff away. It'll be
oh.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah, and I guess it's I think it's an important question because so I have the things that I use, like the condiments and things,
right,
and we have 6 people who
right,
live in our house. And so when I go to clean out the refrigerator, because for some reason it doesn't clean itself,
right.
and so I go to clean it out, and then I'm looking at all of these things, and I don't know who's using
Right,
what, and so things end up being left. And so now
right.
when you described, wow, there's nowhere to put the groceries, I've got the back half of my refrigerator filled with things
Somebody's stuff.
things that
Right,
belong to somebody else. Mealworms were in there one time. I'm like, I don't even know which animal eats mealworms. Like
right. Yes. Well, I think in that situation, that's really your opportunity to bring everybody to the kitchen and say, okay, we are cleaning out the fridge.
hmm.
I have even taken everything out of a space and said, what do you want back in? Whether that's a
Hmm.
fridge or a playroom or, sometimes we just have to do something dramatic. What's interesting is this happens a lot with toys, is that the kids are like, I want to keep these things. And the parents are like, but what about these things? But what about these things? So when we make decisions for other people, we're often really disconnected from what they truly desire, where
Right.
they are now. We have these emotional attachments to their old clothes and their toys, and they're like, no, I'm good, I'm done with that. Sometimes it's the other way, but most of the time the parents are trying to keep things. The kids are even okay with letting go of. And then the kitchen, it's the same way. I can do a lot of the kitchen by myself, but the same thing in the fridge, like creamers. And I'm like, I don't even know who, and I'm not a meat eater. And so like, I'm like, meat, whose meat is this? And then there are times that I have like, hippy dippy things. Everybody's like, yeah, that's Christy's. So there's nothing wrong with bringing everybody together for a project like that. There's nothing wrong with that. And especially in your situation, because you're all leaving the house. So it's not like you're going to pack up those things. This is going to be a really easy purge for you. But if you are staying in your house and you have that situation in the fridge where there are a lot of people that are in adultish roles and can make decisions about condiments, those sorts of things, and you can't get food in the fridge, it's like, everybody, I need 20 minutes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about that. I've always moved and I've always packed a cooler and moved them. And I'm thinking, well, wait.
You call a friend and say, hey, do you want any of this stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. I got some really good mayo.
Yes.
you
Anyone?
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody? Yeah. So just a different thought process.
Very.
Okay. One of the other questions is just time, lack of
Mhm.
it.
Yes. So that's the reason we have the challenges in the workshops and in the book. And if you worked with me one-on-one, it would be the same thing. You have whatever situation you have today, and then you have wherever you're headed, whether that's a big dramatic change or a subtle change. And you have some number of releases between here and there, right? Like whatever that number is, we don't know what it is. If you give it 15 minutes once a day, it's going to take that long. And if you can give it twice a day, it's going to take half that time. If
Hmm.
you can give it, 3 times a day, then it's going to take even less. So this is not about a right or wrong way. If you want this done in a more compressed timeline, then find more minutes for me and I will help you make it happen. If you have 5 minutes a day, you can still do this. A lot of it is about, kind of raising awareness about what's coming into the house and how it's coming in, and can that be resolved? Because then at least you've got this, at least stuff is just leaving instead of coming and leaving. So that eventually, even if you can give me 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, eventually this is going to be a radically different situation. But if you're only able to give it that short amount of time, then give yourself the grace and love and gentleness to just keep doing it at 5 minutes a day. Some people's realities really don't allow that. Sometimes I'll have people who work crazy hours and then they have 3 days off in a row once a month, and they just put a whole day in. If once a month you give it 8 or 10 hours, it's still going to work. If you give it an hour a month, it still can work, but it's going to work. It's going to take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want anybody to feel like they can't do this if they don't have a lot of time. The way I write challenges is very specifically so that they can take 15 minutes or less. I have done them many, many times myself. And if you need to adjust challenges, to, keep in mind the real time that you have to work with. And then I also invite people to think about hacks. Like if you have kids that are in a bath that don't need to be attended closely, like that's the time, get under the sink, right? You don't have to be watching them because they're old enough and they're fine to bathe themselves, to play in the water. It's a perfect time to get under the sink. If you're waiting for noodles to boil, you have 11 minutes, knock out a drawer in the kitchen. Like this is really about sneaking time. Mm-hmm. If you don't have it readily available.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I've been doing that too. All right, I'm waiting for something. And so I'll just, right. All right, I'm doing this.
Yes.
I've
got people who do their email at the doctor's offices because they have lots of waiting time at appointments or getting the oil changed. And so, 10,000 emails when we start, and eventually they get them down just because they can do that while they're waiting, and the waiting is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. And so it's, I know you have the challenges in the book, and that might really help guide people through that process of, here, we'll go here and then look at this. And,
right. And it's all
in this time.
Exactly. It's all with the intention of teaching them how to create the challenges for themselves. Because if you walk into the kitchen and say, I'm going to fix this, you're going to turn right around and walk out. Mm-hmm. Like nobody does that. Nobody fixes the kitchen. Nobody fixes the garage. But you can go in and make the kitchen the upper cabinets or the lower cabinets or the fridge or the freezer, or if that's still too big and you still need to walk away, you can go back in and say, okay, this is cabinet 1. I'm going to do the top shelf. Like, who cares? Who cares? You're here and you want to be there. Let's just find any way to get you moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's the big thing, I know in my house, I've seen just, it's like stuck, like the garage.
Right.
Oh my God, the garage.
Yeah.
And so it's just been one bin at a time.
That's right.
And, Trey and I go through it and, but, it looks much better now. I should have taken before pictures, but I didn't. I mean, when you can actually see through, there's space above, a lot of stuff has come out of it. And it hasn't been because, we spent, 6 straight days working on it.
Right.
It's because we took little pieces.
Yes.
And so it's easy to get the illusion. And especially when you're stuck, that I just don't have time. But
Absolutely.
Part of it is overwhelm. I mean, at least I can.
A big part of it is overwhelm. Absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of this approach is like, how do I make this work accessible for people? So this isn't a method. I joke about that in the book. Like I don't have this. I mean, there's 100 great methods. There's so many great books to tell you how to do this if you need somebody to tell you what to do. I wrote this book for people who that didn't work for them. And this is about figuring out the emotional aspects that keep those great methods from working for people. Mm-hmm. They gotta find somewhere and just start.
Right.
It doesn't have to be pretty.
What?
Yeah.
We talked about that yesterday.
We don't have to Pinterest this. It's okay. We're just gonna do it one box at a time.
One box at a time. We're getting out of this house one box at a time.
Yes, you are.
All right. So someone asked about repair work.
Yes.
And so let's talk about that.
All right. So we have projects basically. So whether that's repairing, I've got one client who has bins of clothes that needed to be repaired before they could be donated, because it's like fabric and coveted. And so we just had this big talk about like, if you repair this, it can go, but this is time, right? Like time, time is real. And it can be bent if you're really good, but it can't ever just be made not an issue. And so, you have to really balance these things. And so there's places that you can take yourself off the hook. Like if this item is no longer true for you, but you have to repair it in order to sell it. Well, okay, can I sell it broken for less? Can I sell it, just tell people. You don't have to lie. Like tell them. I sold a camera, a Canon Rebel that I couldn't afford to get fixed. I sold it for parts. Somebody was so happy to get that. And we got a few hundred, whatever dollars, $50. I don't even know what it was, but some dollars that was like bonus because I couldn't use the camera. So what was the value in like clinging to the potential for this repaired camera if I couldn't fix it? If it's, clothing, if it's little little things that you actually do want to spend the time and the energy and the money to repair, then make a pile, consider that a project. I know that sometimes this is just about kind of wrapping our brains around it. I have seen people take to the soccer field a stack of clothes that need to be mended. Buttons are getting sewn on. I mean, it just takes an hour, but who has an hour? Well, turns out, 3 times a week, I have an hour and a half at the soccer field. So fine, take that with you. I see projects a lot in crafts too, especially knitters. They're killing me. I love people who knit. I want all the things that have been knit, all of them. I want to own them all. But like, we are known for starting projects and not finishing them. How many things have been made in the world that haven't been finished? And, I've got one client in the grads group on Facebook who just got like cloth bags and put every project in a bag of its own and put them all in one closet. And she was like, I'm going to do this. And she strategically organized them. I did the same thing when I first started doing this on my house, which was almost 5 years ago when I started teaching this. And I put all of my half-done craft projects in one box, and I put a date on it that was 30 days away. And I said, if I don't care enough to finish it before 30 days is up, then they're going to go. And most of them went. Because when push came to shove and me actually saying, I'm willing to use my time in this way, I actually wasn't. And so that was my big reckoning. Like, you either do it or you don't do it. And there's no judgment about it. There's no judgment. There's no wrong here. You can either say the time and energy is worth it, or it obviously isn't. And then you can find a way to release it as is.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the, I was just looking at who submitted that question, and I know that in their house, they've been doing a remodeling project. And so that's part of the, and it's been ongoing for a long time.
Right.
And it's part of their living space. So,
right.
And I'm not, there wasn't a very specific question, but I was just thinking, we have those little projects, but then sometimes it's like a really
Huge.
big
Right.
project.
Well, I think the other thing that happens in those situations is sometimes we take on projects that we don't actually have the resources to finish. So like if we did some painting here recently, we had dark wood and white walls, and it just, blah. And so we painted the wood white. And when we did, it kind of more noticeable that there was pieces of trim that needed to be replaced. And so we got all the painting done, and it's all wonderful. And then the piece of new trim is still hanging there. And so that's on the list to do this week. Dion's like, I'm out of school and that trim is getting finished. Right. But if it was just me, that would stay there forever, because I don't know how to do that. And I think it's really important that while I'm 41 years old and I'm grown and I've like raised some humans and I'm like really smart and really powerful, that learning how to do that trim may not be a good use of my time. And so I might want to find a way to, even if I have to get really crafty, I want to find a way to get that done that doesn't involve me going on YouTube and spending a lot of hours trying to learn how to cut trim. And like, it's even a skill I kind of would like to have, but just not where I am in my life right now. And in order to get that finished, if she wasn't here and going to do it, I would, absolutely get on Nextdoor and say, okay, I'll make dinner for whoever can come put these 2 pieces of trim in, because I can't. A lot of times I hear from women who have that kind of big construction stuff going on, and you've maybe started a project that you don't have the money to finish. Well, what do you need to do to make that happen? Or let's say that I have a lot of times I hear about things that husbands say they're going to do that wives see not happening. What kind of communication? This is just a communication problem. Like, how can we have a different conversation with our partner who's responsible for doing that about moving forward with that project? There's a lot of aspects here that probably are at play that aren't just how can I be stronger, smarter, better. If I was just a good person, this project would be done. Well, no, it's not about that. It might be that you don't know how to do it. It might be you don't have enough money to do it. It might be that the person who promised you they would help you do it is not doing their part. And you have to either find a way to work with them to get it done, or you have to figure out how to get it done on your own. And I'm really enjoy those moments where I can be, creative with a client and help them figure out how to get it what's actually the problem here and how do I get it done?
Nice.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, big projects.
Mm-hmm.
Having a big project right now.
Me too.
Yeah. So kids' memory stuff.
Yes.
What to keep, what to throw out.
Everybody has their own solution for this. The one that I tell all the time is what we did. School stuff started coming in and I thought, what am I going to do with all of this? And of course they think, Picasso. And so, yeah, everything has to be sketched. So I went and bought medium-sized Rubbermaids, one for each of the children. And we just started putting, they're not like little, but they're not huge. They're just, probably, something easily, I could even pick them both up and carry them together. They're very, reasonable size.
Yeah.
And I said, these are each for your school things. And they have had them since they were early elementary school. And they just started putting stuff in. And in the beginning, they put tons of stuff. And then they started them sort of filling up. And I said, if we get to the place that they're full and new things can't come in, we'll go in and see if there are old things we want to release. And that was just creating a boundary. And they got to be in choice. Every now and then I put something in there that they didn't want to keep that I thought later I would want or they might want. But for the most part, I've just let them be in charge of that. And it became a very great way for them to have some sort of limit that would allow them to make choices. Whereas when the kitchen table is the place that I put my school stuff, it's impossible to make a choice because it will all fit there. We won't be able to eat there, but it will fit.
Right.
The exception to this is kids who are getting a Waldorf education, because the art that comes out of the Waldorf school and the way that they learn and teach at the Waldorf schools, it just produces a lot more paper that warrants being kept. It may not into adulthood, but I have granted my Waldorf families, a couple of bins because I've seen the stuff that comes out of those schools. And it's someday you'll look back and think which of the second grade art kind of learning represents best this whole genre of things. But in the beginning, I think just store them and be in awe and put them in a frame and but that's the only exception to that. We have that box for the kids, which is academic memory stuff. And then I have another one that's smaller that is just keepsake things. And it has like birthday cards they wanted to keep and I don't know, patches from scouting and, just all that random stuff that they have in their room for a while. And then they're like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm like, okay, put it in your box. Those have never gotten full. There's plenty of stuff in them. They're probably both close to full, but they're not full yet. Certificates of things they did, And then I do have one file for each person in the family in the filing cabinet. And it just has each person's important documents. So medical things go in there. Evaluations for ADHD go in there. Birth certificates, social security cards. And I've actually just unloaded sets to him and got him up his own little filing system started and said, we got to get his file out and officially hand over his important documents. But those are the three places, it's that school box, the memories box of just random things, and then, important documents are in a filing cabinet. If somebody has stuff that doesn't fit in those categories, then, call me. We'll
Right.
figure it out. But
Right.
what I find is the things that people most often are asking how to manage.
Okay. How to keep the house clean and tidy without feeling like that's all I ever do. There's so many people who feel this way, and I know I've felt this way. Oh my God, really? You just the toddler just dumped that,
Yes.
I just cleaned up.
Yes. I think this is the secondary reason for my affection for simplicity. If I have 8 plates and they're all dirty, I can wash all of the plates in, I can have all of the dishes back in the cabinet clean and dry in 20 minutes. And I've been to houses where people had, we have towels. If we didn't wash towels once or so a week, we only wash like once a week, but probably we have enough towels that we could go 2 weeks as a family, unless there was like some sort of incident, we could use them all. But we have 2 weeks worth of towels. because we do laundry and it's easy to do laundry. And I've been to houses where people have 60 towels and they're like, the towel situation is out of control. I'm like, yes, because you have 60 of them. If you can go a month without washing towels, you're going to have 4 days worth of towels to wash. And you have to decide if you're going to be the people who do a load of towels once a week, or if you're going to be the people who do, 2 days worth of towels once a month. And I have found that the more dishes I have, the more they pile up. And then not only is there more of them, which takes more time, they get more gross to wash because they've had more time to sit there. People are much less careful about what's happening when there's 1,000 things to choose from. People use towels very haphazardly if there's a million of them around the house. But if everybody has two, like, what are you going to do? I had a very good friend who has many, many children, and her dish situation was out of hand. And so my encouragement for her, because they had that situation where they had tons of dishes because they have 5 kids and 2 adults and tons of dishes. And I said, everybody gets 1 bowl, 1 plate, 1 spoon, 1 fork, and 1 knife, and a cup. And that's theirs. She did it. And it changed everything, because that child after breakfast was responsible for preparing their, silverware and dishes for lunch. So we're going 3 hours, 4 hours before there's some level of accountability here. And I think when we have stuff in mass, we don't have that accountability. We cannot do laundry for 3 weeks, but what happens when we don't do laundry for 3 weeks? Right?
Yeah, we spend a long time doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is the reason for simplicity. I want to be able to clean my entire house in 2 hours. That's why we live this way. Like, I want to, and we do. I don't want a lot of things because I don't want to dust a lot of things. I don't want a lot of things on the floor because I don't want to have to move them to clean the floor. And that's the motivation. So when somebody says, like, I spend all of my time cleaning, then I think probably there's a risk that they have more things than they have time and energy to maintain. So we reduce the things so that we are reducing the responsibility down to something we're willing to commit to.
Something that's manageable, something we can actually do.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we have 2 of those big black trash bags full of towels that we have collected. I mean, I can't even tell. Yeah, little button there.
Yeah. But everybody has their thing, For some people, it's bathroom stuff. I've gone to, we went and looked at an apartment once that had 4 or 5 young women living in it, and bathroom, I was like, there were more bottles in there than at the pharmacy, like where you buy shampoo and conditioner. I was like, 5 of the most beautiful people in Minneapolis. And I was so shocked by it because, like, we have, we just don't have that kind of excess. And I forgot that anybody would need 8 hairsprays. Like, I just didn't even know that was a thing. So, some people it's the bathroom, some people it's the laundry, some people it's the dishes. But if it's so much for you to manage, you need less, because you only are willing to give X amount of time and energy to that maintenance. This is why. So bring the stuff back into scale so that you're able to maintain it in the amount of time you have to give.
Right. Which is good.
Yes.
I like the idea of it being just so much more simple.
Yes.
And manageable. Because we want to spend time with our families. We want to spend time enjoying. We want to spend time, whatever that is for us, whatever it is that's important. And I think it's important to remember what those things are. Because it makes it much easier. I mean, at least I'm seeing in this process for me, it makes it so much easier to, okay, I'm going through that bin. I'm going through the bin because I know what's coming. I know that for us, that's going to be time, and Trey's going to get to take pictures, and we're going to travel, and, so, okay, I'll just, and for some families, it's going to be, okay, I want to be able to have time where I can just sit and, we can all hang out and play on the floor. If the
Right.
floor is clean enough and,
Right.
spending all my time taking care of these things, I'm actually getting to sit and play
Right.
with my kids, whatever that is for you. So I
Right.
think it's important to like name that. What is that?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think for me, at the kids being the age that they are, I mean, it's very easy now to say, like, I'm sorry, I have a dream. Like, I have a dream to write books and to share this information with people and to support people in the way that I do. Like, this is my professional dream, and at least part of it. And I want to be able to work. I want to be able to work, and I want to be able to be there for the kids when they, want that. I want time to spend staring at the beautiful one. And it's like, that's what I want to do. And I don't want to be tied down to this space. And I don't want a lot of chaos in my life. And I don't want to have to choose between what I want and a bunch of unnecessary stuff.
Right. Right.
It's hard to make the choices, but when you remember what you're searching for, what you're moving toward, it helps a lot.
Right. Right. It's not for naught.
Right. Exactly.
It's not just, it's not just, you've got to go through this really sucky thing,
Right.
just for the sake of going through it. And like you started with, it doesn't have to suck.
It doesn't have to suck. Yeah.
It doesn't have to. And, and I see that, I see that there's in my own process, there are things that are like, ooh, wow. Ooh, that was, that was a little harder, and sometimes we do need that layer of support, which is why I'm so grateful for you, Christy, and for for all of the things that you're doing to help me, all of those emails that you're answering from me, and then the videos where we're talking through it. So I'm just so.
It makes a difference. I think that's another thing that's really one of the greatest gifts that you'll give people is to show them that it's okay to get support like this, because there's so much shame around home. And if it doesn't feel like we want it to feel or like we think it should feel, there's a lot of weight, and it just doesn't have to be that way. A lot of people, I wish I could tell you how many times a woman has said to me, I'm grown, I should know how to clean my house. I'm like, did your mother clean the house? She's like, no. Like, why would you know? Why would you know? I have people that I've had to teach them that you purge the stuff in the fridge, because that didn't happen. They either didn't have things to purge, or like they never saw it happen. Things were always cluttered. Things were always chaotic. Some people didn't know that releasing things was a thing. And so if you didn't have this modeled for you, or if it was done to such an extreme that you never saw it happen, because that's the other end of the spectrum, is like OCD stuff. Sometimes the kids are like, I don't know how this happened. I don't know how to clean because it was done in this sort of dark way. And like, we all are just learning. And if you need help from me or from a friend or from a professional organizer, get it. There's no reason to feel ashamed about wherever you are today.
Absolutely. And it's very doable. One of the things that we didn't talk about, which is the whole 27 thing, it's like, it doesn't have to be, the huge thing. One of the things in the book is 27 things. So probably when we finish this call, I'm going to go into that bin over there with my clothes I pulled out of my dresser the other day, and I'm going to pull out 27 things.
Right.
And that may be all I do right then.
Right.
But it's doable.
It's doable. And you may get in and think, okay, I'm going to finish this piece, this project, but it doesn't matter. Like, if you just do that number, I love that number 27. And if you just do that, you'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you are interested in Christy's book, it's Is Home Your Happy Place? And I'll send a link out when I send the recording. So because you signed up, I can communicate that with you. So I'll get you that link if you're interested in that. There's a Kindle version and a paperback version, so you got your choice. And then I have 27 days, which is going on now. And if you want to join us, there's more support. There's a forum that we can have conversations in. There are extra bonus recordings and things that I'm doing that, if you're participating, will help to support you a little bit more. And it's $27, and it helps to support my family. So I'll send a link out for that too, but it's consciously-parenting-academy.com/27 days. And if you put a dash in there, then you go to my blog on that post. So don't put a dash in, just 27 days.
Good.
So thank you so much, Christy. I'm so grateful for your wisdom and for all of your support. And I love that you're doing this and you're able to do this more now. you know,
I am
we're
so grateful, and I'm loving this experience. I would have done this with you privately, and to get to do it publicly so other people can see what is possible is a great gift for me and for everybody else. And if people need more support from Rebecca, do that. This place was up and running and amazing long before this month. And if you need support from me, you can find me at theunrulywoman.com or all over Facebook.
all right. Thank you so much, Christy.
Thank
If you've
you.
got questions, you can hit reply to the email that you got to sign up. It goes to me, and I will pass those along to Christy if they feel like they need to go there. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. We had more questions than we had time for.
That's all right.
So,
We'll be back next week.
yep, we will. Absolutely. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you.